on my personal Bizmonger YouTube channel that's separate from the Lambda cartel. So,
Yeah.
all right. So you can chime in whenever. Like it's whenever you want to interrupt, or whenever you have a question, or whenever I say something that doesn't make sense, feel free to like drill into it. You know what I mean? All right. So like, let me go ahead and share my desktop. Share my desktop. Come here. Starts. Present to everybody, and you see my desktop. Okay. So let me do this. I showed Michael Feathers this like an hour ago,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's like, hold up, Google actually has something similar to this. And I'm like, no, don't tell me that. And he's like, yeah, he says Google has some service where um I guess he was saying he didn't actually demonstrate it, but he said that Google has a service where people can subscribe to, I guess, search terms or people's names as it gets published on the internet.
Oh,
So
yeah.
really, I didn't know
Yes.
that.
Yeah, there's this like you can create these like alerts where if a keyword comes up, and so basically you can save searches, and then every time a new result's added to that search, you can do it again.
Hold up for a second. Let me make sure my headset's coming in clear. So that says default. So if I change that to my, do I sound a
USB.
little bit better now? Or is this the
Uh,
same?
actually sound worse.
Are you serious? Why would you say that? I don't sound better?
It's, say a few more things. This might be the connection.
A few more things. This might be a connection.
Yeah, no, that sounds fine. I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
it
right.
doesn't sound any different. So it says we're live now.
So like Feathers is like, yeah, this is before I showed him Nikeza. And he's like, oh, I think Google has something that basically what you described. I'm like, no, don't tell me that. You know. But then I responded, well, if I don't know about it and you're telling me this, then there's millions of people that don't know about it either. So I think I'm still safe. You know what I mean?
uh, I- even if Google does Google does have something, but as far as I remember, it's basically just a way for you to subscribe to like pre-configured search alerts or something.
Okay. Damn, we could have just leveraged that.
Sort of. You basically have to make it. You'd have to make a web scraper, but that's not nearly as fun as like building integrations to things and getting
Yeah.
having. I don't know. Like it's still a fun goal because it gives you something to build towards.
Yeah. Oh, so are you looking at my screen?
Yep.
So you notice I have comments in here?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. You see my use of comments?
Well, you don't need that because they're in the package JSON file.
I don't know how to do command line stuff.
uh,
So I take patterns and then I'll just throw it at the top of a file and then I'll
like
just copy paste it.
it's in the README.
I don't know how to read readmes.
Typical Windows user.
Pretty much, or it's just me. So I thought I hit enter. So it says success compiled 0 modules, whatever,
That
and
means
then
it's
it's
cached on.
launching. Okay, so here's Nikeza. Yo, let me
Yeah.
tell you something. This went from hey guys, let's build something together to yo, there's something that is like actually coming out of this, you know? Like so I've been, as you asked, I said I have developed a habit and I'm trying to satisfy my goal of pushing incremental updates every single day until it accumulates into an actual product. And that's my objective. That's my goal.
Yeah, that's good.
So test is username, password. Have you have you actually visited the client side independently?
You mean get like spin it up running like you have now?
Yeah.
Only like once or twice. I've been trying to like learn Reason, which is
Okay.
that camel syntax language that Facebook came out with because yeah, I decided I was like I'm going to use a language I know nothing about to download all the tags of Stack Overflow and then serve them up over Express.js.
And so much props. Thank you for getting that done. So
It was, yeah, it's pretty cool.
let's talk about that. So here's a trivia question for you.
Mm-hmm.
When we start integrating this, because I plan on building out the database next week. When we start integrating
Yep.
this, what is your source of reference for wiring the services to Nikeza client? Which
So you just hit like a RESTful API. So in some way you deploy the tags RESTful service somewhere, and then just have Elm just do like as you're typing it, sending off requests to get the autocomplete.
all right, so translate it. Let me ask this a different way.
Mm-hmm.
If 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 you want to start wiring up the Stack Overflow service or integration, or the Stack
Mm-hmm.
Overflow service that you implemented,
Yep.
and also the YouTube service that you implemented, do you know the reference point to go to within this Nikeza client to wire things up?
Nope.
All right. So with that said, your source of truth for how to connect things together or how to integrate things together is your control P is you look for a file, which I wish it was control
Yep.
comma within Visual Studio, but within Visual Studio Code is control P, I guess within the Elm whatever plugin, whatever you call it. So there's
No, that's
a
just VS Code. On Mac, it's Command
art.
P.
Ew. All right. Anyway, so there's the server.elm file. Okay.
Yep.
The server.elm file is basically the the client to the services that you guys have been building. Okay.
Yep.
So this is basically all the method signature. These are all the function signatures of what the Elm client expects when it sends a request over the wire. Unsubscribe, follow, subscriptions is up here, right? There's also I thought I published on GitHub an issue for sending the platforms that are supported, so that in the case that this actual Nikeza does get used in production by people and people will say, oh, this is useful, right? If we actually do have users, and
Yep.
that may potentially spawn a mobile case, basically an iPhone or an Android implementation of Nikeza,
Yep.
then rather just pull the platforms that are supported to populate the list views from the actual server instead of having to maintain that on each client. You know what I mean? So this list
Um.
platform is YouTube, Stack Overflow, um, stuff like that, WordPress. It's basically
Oh, okay.
a whole bunch of strings to populate list views when you go to the sources view to configure your sources.
Oh, right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So these are all the domain models for yeah.
Actually, yeah. So this, make long story short, you go to the server.elm file to basically integrate the services that you wrote to the Elm client. So I'm not sure if you've written Elm code, but I hope you write some, and I hope that you guys can go to this file and make the requests. But Anyway, so that's it. Let me go back
Yep.
to what am I running? This is right here, Edge. All right, so my eighth week of learning Elm journey is I started adding this pub sub support to Nikeza. So
Okay.
there's subscriptions, which this shows that I'm subscribed to Pablo Rivera, and if I want to unsubscribe, this is kind of what I stole from Twitter. Then I could just tap that, right? In addition to that, if I drill in, I added a back button that has been wired up, right? So you hit back button,
Okay.
and once it is implemented, it'll go back here. But there
Oh, so you
is
haven't worked out how to get the native back button
not yet.
to.
I haven't invested time in that
Okay.
yet. There's
That's right.
I don't know if it should be black or navy blue. I don't know. But there's also a follow button on the actual profile of the person that I am following.
Yeah.
If you go to all, then buttons also here. Yeah. So make long story short, I added a follow button and an unsubscribe button for subscriptions, right? You also have your followers. So subscriptions are people that you follow. Followers are people that have subscribed to you. In this case,
Yeah.
you are my follower, Mitchell, and so is Odie, right? In this make believe client that I have. So it's
Yep.
pretty much the same view, right? I could choose to follow you back. Now, members is everybody, and there's always a search right here, right?
Cool.
And in addition to that, my portfolio, this is something that is going to be different. So what I have to do on my list, which I probably won't get done today,
Mm-hmm.
is regardless of the page that we go to, regardless of the portfolio, maybe I should call this portfolio page. So for example, this is my portfolio: answers, podcasts, articles, videos, right? If I go to
Yeah.
you, this is your portfolio: answers, articles, podcasts, videos. The change that I'm going to make probably tomorrow is that when you look at this, you're going to see featured. All the top 5 links here are going to be featured links of what you want to feature as your answers, what you want to feature as your articles, what you want to feature as your videos, and what you want to feature as your podcast. That stuff is going to show up right here. And if there's some additional links to your content that's distributed across the World Wide Web, well, that stuff isn't featured, but you can see the rest of it in here. But the featured stuff will still be highlighted even when you go to your all content type. So you're probably scratching your head like, okay, what does that really mean? All right, so let me show you what that means. All right, so if I go to portfolio and I go to my all links, there's some checkboxes right here. Okay.
Okay.
Bam. Bam. This is pretty much me wanting to feature specific links. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I do that, when I actually wire up what I want to feature within my portfolio of
Yeah.
actual links, that is actually going to bubble up to my portfolio over here, in which it's going to actually highlight and make bold, these specific links that I want featured. And anything else that I didn't feature, well, it's going to have this original style to it. But the links that I do feature, they're going to be bold and they're going to be highlighted in some background color, like you just saw. Shoot. How do I go back to my portal? Well, that you just saw me demonstrate. So that's on my
Yeah.
to-do list, and so I think that's viable because when I have my blog posts, for example, if I go to how do I do this? If I go to bizmongerwordpress.com, I have
Oh, this is the journey you're talking about.
yeah, I have I think I have like if you look at my history, my archives, I've been doing this since 2015, and I probably have like maybe 150 blog posts in which a lot of them are just me just doing a brain dump on code snippets, and they're not really essays. I have some essays in here
Yep.
that I wrote, but that was like from 6 months ago or a year ago. So the reason why I'm saying this is because the intent is to feature the really good content that you produce that you want people to see, so that people don't judge you when they go to your portfolio. People don't judge you on your brain dumps. That wasn't really meant for viewers. It was meant for yourself to reference. And so when you want content, when you have content that are meant for viewers that you're really proud of, you can
Yep.
feature that and it'll show up in here. And then if they want to drill down to your other content, then they can go down here. You get me?
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean. So you've got content up the top, which you want to kind of have as like your hero links, and then you've got
Exactly.
mentors, which are just everything that you're mentioned in.
Yep. So
Yeah, that sounds fun.
if you also noticed, if we go back to, let's I'll do this. Come here. We go back. I do test. If you remember, right now, these are this is the navigation panel. I'm sorry, I'm not a UX designer. This is the best I can do right now. So this is
right.
this is like the navigation panel. Do you see the sources button? Do you see the profile button for editing profile, for editing your sources
So there's
of links?
profile link.
Huh?
So there's recent profile link subscription followers members. Oh, sources top right hand corner.
Yeah, I'll put that over here.
Oh, okay.
One is I'm not a UX designer, but I didn't want to pretty much have a proliferation of buttons that's uneasy to follow. So I was able to constrain it to these main buttons right here, and I even put in some separators or some spacing to basically establish kind of like responsibilities. That's the best I could do right now.
That's all right. I go to this website called Up Labs, which is really good because it's got like all these heaps and heaps of designs, some of which are actually like free, and they give you the like Adobe and Sketch files.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. This is
check it out.
Crap. This link, I didn't update this. Hold up. Give me a second. So I'm trying to. So like, I'm coaching a team.
Yep, you mentioned at your new job.
Yeah, and so what I'm trying to teach them is the Boy Scout rule. I don't know. Are you familiar with Uncle Bob's Boy Scout rule? Or
The camping thing, where when you go to code, you touch it up a bit and leave it cleaner than when you found it.
yeah, and that completely resonates with me.
Yeah.
I find it difficult to encourage people to do that. Like, you'll be surprised how many people are perfectly happy working in garbage, and they won't clean it up as they're making updates to it.
Sometimes it's a bit hard because sometimes your garbage is so flammable that touching it causes it to combust.
Oh, so like, do I have to close
I know what
this?
you mean.
So I'm trying to coach them into doing that, and it's all about having a clean signal with no distractions. That's the ideal environment that I want to program in. That's the ideal environment that I think we all want to program in. And I'm looking at the way that they write code. They have all these unused import statements of files that or classes that they're not using, but there's like 100 imports at the top of the file.
Are you using Java?
But only like 75 of them are actually being used. One is there's a problem when you have 100 imports of other files, right? Like,
is
and then have is there? Yeah.
It's when you say import, are you talking about Java or JavaScript here?
I'm talking about when you want to import a namespace. Okay.
So the using statement at the top.
Yeah.
So it's a C#, right?
Yeah.
So doesn't the linker strip those things out if they're not being used and they just kind of clutter the source file?
Here's the interesting thing. Someone was aware of .NET user extensions, or yeah, .NET extension, Visual Studio extensions, should I say. And so they have some Visual Studio extensions that
Yeah.
basically identify namespaces that were imported but are not being used.
Oh,
And
okay.
so the
Yep.
developers see that. They see the namespaces that aren't being used and they don't delete it. So they know that the
Well,
namespaces aren't being used and they still leave them there. So you have all these different colors, all these different squigglies of
yeah.
warnings and disclaimers, and they just keep working within the code base with all this noise in it.
I don't ever I never look at my import statements because I've been doing lots of Java recently, and I just tell IntelliJ to delete unused imports.
Yeah,
Like,
so you
can you
you have
can you
that in
do that
Visual
at Visual
Studio.
Studio?
Yeah, in Visual
Oh,
Studio
okay.
you have that. The point is that I need to actually sit down with them. They have a deadline. And so I don't want to overwhelm them with
Yeah.
responsibilities. So when they satisfy this deadline with whatever product that they're building,
Yeah.
I'm going to basically pull them into a conference room, and we're going to do pair programming, and I'm going to basically demonstrate the Boy Scout rule and why it is good to remove noise from your code base, and it provides clarity, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
I listened to the podcast that you guys had yesterday,
Yep.
and so that has a lot to do with working within, basically being inserted into an environment where you think this is normal, right? So a lot of
Yeah.
developers, they were injected, or their first job was to come into an environment in which the culture, which they believe was global or doctrine, and this is what it means to write code, is to write in a very noisy environment. And to them, it's not noisy. To them, there's not distractions all over the code base. To them, this is what professional code looks like. And so I'm like, I have to basically encourage, or I'm trying not to say educate, but educate them into, no, this is not normal. No, this is not the way. This is not an ideal environment. When you get into a code base and you want to make a change, you should see exactly the change that you need to make, because it's right there. It is blatant. You know what I mean? It screams, update me, without all these distractions, without all this noise, without all this verbosity, you know? So yeah. Um, this is something I wanted. Oh yeah, yeah. So the profile, I'm going scatterbrain. Forgive me. Uh,
That's fine.
the
Like, yeah.
the profile is right here. I move that stuff to the upper right.
Yeah.
Sources is right here. I move that to the upper right.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, good. Sources is now flushed up here. That's the change that I just made when I went into the code base over here. Oh no, 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 no. It's link, link,
Yeah.
link.
And
Why aren't you up
if you're
here,
not,
link?
because you need to rebuild it. Because if you didn't run the Elm live command, then it won't automatically update the Elm files.
No,
It's
you
the
don't.
HTML files.
Yeah, but the other part is it's not going to work because I didn't put the class in here. So what that means is there is I'm not a web developer, right? Hold up. I created a class this morning after I talked with Mike Feathers. This main
Yeah.
content right here, I got to throw it
Ah, mine
right
is
here.
15 padding.
What's up?
Mine is 15 padding.
Yeah, I guess that's a code smell, huh?
Yeah, a little.
Uh, Great. I can open it as an issue and you can fix it. So now if I go to link, yay, it's up here now. Okay. So
Wait, what was the difference?
the difference was the link header was way down here. It was like 3/4 from the bottom. It was right here. I don't know if you see my cursor.
Your cursor, I don't think is in the place. I think like it looks like you're mousing over the Nikeza logo.
Oh yeah, so there's okay, so no. So what it looked like before was this right here. Hold up. Um, how do you refresh this? Of course, you want me to log back in.
Uh,
A lot of this stuff I got to fix. The whole URL. So if I go to link, you see it's down. It's not flush with the top of the image. You see that?
No, it looks the same to me.
Okay, look at the position of link right now.
Yes.
Where is it at relative to this image? Who's this handsome guy right here? Yo, who are you?
Uh,
Okay, so
it's the text link is just to the right of your profile.
is it flush with the top of the profile?
Wait, what's flush mean?
Is it horizontal or vertically aligned with the top edge of this profile image?
Oh, in the top left. Yeah, no.
Okay, so what I'm saying is when I do this
Mm-hmm.
and log back in, do link, where is it at now? It's flushed almost,
Slightly higher.
slightly higher. Well, yeah, but it's it's almost flush with the top part. So that's all I wanted to do. I only want to bring
Oh,
it up.
right. So you want to have like the text, including the font padding, to be in line with the top margin of the image.
Yeah, not necessarily for the link part, but
Yeah.
to be consistent with. Shoot, I'm getting lost. To be consistent with. Where's this thing at? There's a reason why I had this. All these thumbnails right here,
Mm-hmm.
I had to lift them up -15 margin dash top
Yeah.
because they were sinking down. But there's other headers in here, and of course I can't find it. That yeah, profile. I wanted to be consistent with this profile up here. I wanted to be consistent with the sources up here. So all this stuff is vertically aligned with the top of this image, and so link wasn't, and I just wanted to make link consistent with everything else. That's all.
Oh, okay.
This right here, this title thing, that probably can be lifted up too. Where is that?
Do we have an issue for like design? Because maybe that's something someone can have an attack. I know Pablo was trying to use Bootstrap at one point, but I think he got busy with something else.
Yeah, Pablo, he basically corrected some things that I didn't know how to do. So he fixed this whole tabbing thing with the user with the credentials right here. Before when I
Yeah.
would hit tab, I don't know where it would go. So he fixed that. He went to see. He also fixed some alignment issues that I didn't know how to do. Like I forget exactly, but I had opened up some UX design issues in GitHub, and he went ahead and knocked it out. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That is my status of my journey 8 weeks into learning web development and Elm programming. So things are coming together. I think, at least for me, it is. I'm pretty happy with my progress, and this is something that people can't deny, regardless if they don't want to hire me. They can't deny that I learned Elm. They can't deny that I contributed to building a product from start to finish. So they have to use another reason for why they don't want to hire me. So yeah, that's what's up.
No, that's good.
And let me stop sharing my screen. Stop sharing my screen. What's up with you?
Me, not much. Just trying to prepare talks for NDC in Sydney in a few weeks.
Okay.
So that's fun.
That's pretty big. NDC in Sydney?
Yeah. I got one talk which is React Native better than native. And the other one is F# without Windows.
There you go. So do you have did you publish, well, I guess you published your abstract already, and
Yeah.
you gotta accept
NDC.
it. What are you demoing anything?
Nothing particularly exciting. So like
Okay.
the React Native talk, like it's fairly easy to get like a demo app up and running in like 5 minutes, so you can kind of like show live code changes.
You have a blog, a web blog? Do you maintain a blog post?
No, I probably should start doing something like that. The only post I have is like how to use custom fonts in Xamarin. and that's a little bit out of date now.
How do people discover you? How do people know you're awesome, or they don't?
They probably don't. I'm not very good at Twitter.
Okay.
I spend way too much time just like learning stuff in the shadows and things.
Okay. I'm not good at Twitter either. I just I tell people that they're bad developers. That's what I want to be known for, is telling people they're bad.
No. You're as far as I can tell, your strategy is to say the most provocative thing to get like people to respond.
I don't know. Maybe I'm a attention whore at sometimes. So
You're always not mine.
yeah. So yeah, that's it. I don't really have anything else to say. I could elaborate on. I listened to Lambda Cartel podcast number 9. Was that 9?
Yeah, I think we talked about Docker for like 40 minutes, so that was fun.
I'm not going to comment on Docker. And I think you guys get my point about commenting. That's something else that resulted from me trying to work with this team, and they were embracing comments even after I articulated why they tend to have more disadvantages than advantages.
Yeah, so like some of the things we're talking about with the comments is like, you know, in some cases it does make sense, but you know, some people kind of go a bit crazy with them. Where they're like, okay, here's a full loop. Like I can see there's a full loop. Like, why do you need to tell me this?
Yeah, and that's what I was seeing in the code base. Was I saw this method called create. Well, the method was called save policy.
Yeah.
And then the comment above it said save policy. And I saw that littered throughout the code base. And then I saw like all this commented out code, aka dead code.
Yeah.
I don't ask questions. If I see dead code that is no longer in use, I delete it. I'm not going to ask permission. I'm going to delete it. It's in source control. Delete.
Source control. Like, don't need it.
Like,
yeah.
Oh no. We may need this. I'm like, well, and I look at them. I'm like, watch this. And they watch my fingers. Delete. Check in. You know, and I'm like, this is nothing but a distraction. You are spending so much more time trying to figure out where to make an update, and this code is not. This code is obfuscating, or this dead code or commented out code is actually obfuscating the intent of what this method is trying to do. Delete it. Yep. You don't need it. And like, people battle me on this, man. And so I just try really hard to make sure I keep a smile on my face, and like I try to understand the rationale, and then I destroy their belief system. But that's the hardest part. The hardest part is destroying belief systems, man, because people hold on to it religiously because they were raised in it. You know what I mean?
So, yeah, this whole thing about like and people think that they're incredibly rational, and that's the really, really annoying thing about it. Because you think the best way to destroy a belief system is come up with a rational argument, but the belief system was built using a rational argument.
Yeah. Good point.
Okay, I wish I could remember more about that. It's like, I need to go back and rewatch those videos.
Well, so people do things because at one point there was a problem, and the thing that they do used to solve that problem, or it was a good approach to that problem.
Yeah, and that's the rational building blocks of their craziness.
Until those problems become irrelevant or obsolete. So there was a good example of, it had something to do with the width of a horse's butt. And I know that sounds weird, but it was basically the width of a horse. How about that? Maybe that sounds better. The width of a horse was basically the reason why. I'm not sure if it was why railroad tracks were the same width, or some entrance. Something was based on a horse being able to get through.
Yep.
And that was based on like I don't know if it was Stone Age or medieval times, but
Well, there's trains in this thing, so Industrial Revolution.
maybe, right? I'm not sure. I'm butchering where I don't even know where I heard it from, but it's the same
Yep.
pattern. I was, it's coming back to me. I was listening to, is his name Tim Crawford or what's his name? Who's the JavaScript guy? The good parts.
Oh, I don't
I
remember.
think his last name is Crawford. No, well, you know who I'm talking about. So the JavaScript, the good parts author. I was listening to a YouTube video.
Douglas Crockford.
Doug Crawford or something like that. Okay,
Yeah.
he was talking about, he was venting or ranting about um he was venting and ranting about how JavaScript handles numbers and
Yeah, IEEE floating point digits.
how he was saying, I don't remember the exact context that he was talking about, but like there there is a reason why things were done the way they were done 30 years ago or 20
Yep.
years ago, but they're no longer relevant, but we continue to bring it into our code base and we continue to just accept it without questioning why, and then recognizing that it's obsolete, it's no longer needed, and we don't ask those questions at all. I'm a I work as
Yeah,
a consultant. People, developers are no longer, this is me doing a brain dump, scatterbrain. Developers are no longer respected. They're treated as factory workers, and I don't blame them because they no
I
longer think. The majority of them don't think about why. They just follow orders, and that's sad.
yeah, possibly, but it's.
I hate architects.
Wait, is that where you are at the moment?
I'm not an architect. I mean, I might, I perform the role of an architect, but the difference between me and an architect is I know how to write code. And the difference
Was
between
that?
me and an architect is I don't make premature decisions. I defer decisions as long as I can until I have to finally face up to the problem. And then I make a decision because I have way more information that's trickled in over time. Your quote unquote bad architects, which are kind of like dark matter, is like 99% of them, they just don't get it. They make all these upfront decisions without knowing. First, they don't even know the tools, right? But they
You
mandate
mean
that,
enterprise architecture?
call them what you want. A spade is a spade. The ones that don't know how to code
Yeah.
or aren't active in programming, one is they probably used to be good in the 80s, right? But no one would know because how could you measure that? This is me going on a rant talking about
No,
architects and
that's
why they're
fine.
irrelevant. So one is
There's yeah.
architects are irrelevant because they can't code, right? Most of them. Two is they don't understand their tools, right? If you say static analysis to an architect, it's like a Dilbert cartoon. They start scratching their head, and you just see a glazed look. You know, it kind of looks like my dog when I try to like give her an order. Secondly, is they don't know tools. They'll tell you to do something. They'll tell you bring in some framework, some library, but they've never had hands-on experience with it. But they're telling you to use it because this is their vision, but they haven't experienced pain themselves with using it, right? And so architects are out of touch and they make premature decisions. And because they don't write code and they're not in the trenches, they're irrelevant because they don't understand the real world of real systems. They only have their imagination, and for some reason someone is paying them because they don't know about code either. And architects are just leading them down the rabbit hole, and it's really sad. And I want to correct that.
Possibly, possibly somewhere like that.
Dude, you need to start speaking in absolutes, man. You got to speak in absolutes. Everything with you is like context.
Yeah, because even in an axiomatic system, not everything is an axiom.
Well, only a Sith speaks in absolutes. But yeah,
oh,
I'm listening.
That ruins science for us then, because yeah. The speed of light is an absolute number. And damn it, Sith scientists. This is a really good cartoon where it's got these like two cave dudes trying to carry these rocks and they've got square wheels.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. There's another guy behind them with the round wheels, and like, oh, we're too busy. No thanks.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem that a lot of people are in, is that more often than not, coding shops, whether you're working on a product or an agency, everything is about moving forward. There's very little time to kind of stand and look backwards. And I think agile, like agile practices, like as diverse as that topic can be, one of the things that people try to do is the retrospective, where you kind of at the end of your sprint you look back and see how you did. And that's probably a good time to look back and go, right, okay, that was hard. Why? And then try to learn.
Is it really a
Um,
retrospective though, or is it people trying to defend their stance on why they made a decision?
I think it depends on how you've implemented agile in your company.
That's a good answer.
But if you got someone who like is trying to drive communication, the communication and the retrospective ideally should be about identifying where that lack of knowledge is, like, you know, raising up these things of like, you know, we have all these comments in the code, and it's like, why? Like, just delete them. There's a fairly famous story, and I wish I could remember the details, where there's like this trading company lost something like $2 million overnight
Yeah.
because there's a flag that they repurposed in the code, and
You got
there's some dead
executed.
code. Yeah, some dead code that got executed because the flag wasn't properly refactored. It's like, why would you repurpose a flag? Like,
Oh, and the
like
coding
just
horrors.
make a new one.
Yeah, I see in this code base, um, they'll take a one is I have to admit, right before I saw the light, I used to use variables, right, and now like things that I used to do back in the day that I just didn't know any better. I see it littered through the code base, so I see them taking a variable, assigning a value to it,
Yeah.
and then mutating that variable. And we're not talking about like within a for loop. Like they're literally mutating the variable with different data, as if that variable is a temporary variable just to put something in. And I look at it and
Okay.
I'm like, I don't know what this variable is supposed to be for. Like if you do that, call that variable placeholder or something. Like, well, honestly, don't even have a variable. Like, so anyway, to your point, um,
Yeah, that's a bit abstract to kind of understand. I don't quite know what the problem is there, because it's a bit. I don't know. That sounds pretty hard to describe.
yeah, it's basically they're taking a value and they're using it for different contexts of contexts. What's plural? What's
Oh,
plural of context? Contexts. Context. Um. Anyway, they're taking.
I don't know what like a duplicity of context would be.
Yeah,
Um,
they're
but
taking.
yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. So they assign the variable, and then they have like an if statement that then does something. Then they use the same variable for a different if statement that does something completely different.
Yeah, for a different context.
So
And I'm like,
it's like, just make it up a variable.
so here's the thing that you expressed. You said something. You said like 5 minutes ago something to the notion of people just being inclined to like just keep getting things done. Somewhere in there,
Oh yeah.
what do you remember what you said?
Yeah, so it's like, if you don't get given the time to do what you're meant to do, like you said that you've got this deadline and you don't want them to, you don't want to spend too much time teaching them how to camp right now. But what if the next deadline is, as soon as you get past this one, the next deadline's right on the edge?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and there's probably a 99% probability that that pattern is going to happen because that's the reason why the code
Yeah.
base is what it is. Point taken.
Yeah. And it can be kind of hard to judge the value of taking that education time, because it's really hard to judge the value of education because you don't know how long it will take to teach people things.
So, okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, so if you want to have it so that you have time to kind of learn, time to camp, time to revise things, then you need to have a way to kind of measure that when you teach something, you need a way to measure that impact so that you can justify spending more time teaching them until you find that optimal kind of the balance between both the kind of busy work as well as education.
Yeah. So right now, the program that I have set up for them is
Yep.
every Friday we have a reading group. Okay, we have a session for our reading group. So we're
Okay.
going over the book X Unit Test Patterns,
Yep.
and to what you said, they're like, "Oh no, Scott, we're too busy. We have this deadline," and I'm like, "No, the CEO brought me in,
Yep.
and I understand that you're busy. I understand that you have this deadline, but the CEO brought me in, period.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are going to take 1 hour in the conference room,
Yep.
and you are going to go over these 3 chapters, and we're going to discuss it. And then we're going to
Mm-hmm.
discuss how we could apply it to what we're doing. So to
Yep.
make a long story short, yes, there's a balance between learning and doing, right? Applying what you learn. But at the
Mm-hmm.
end, I'm a firm believer in you have to create time and you have to be consistent. When I was on my
Yeah.
bike this morning, I had this like
It's an
light bulb.
investment.
What's up?
It's an investment, but like I think you also have to prove to them that they're getting value. So do you track how many bugs you have like from week to week, like even if that's just the amount of issues in your bug tracker or whatever?
I there's a couple of things that I did. So all bugs are forwarded
Yeah.
to all bugs are forwarded to me, and
So
then I'm going to basically develop a plan when this deadline is over for demonstrating
yep.
how continuous integration and a combination of other things are going to drive down the frequency of bugs being discovered in the system. So I have
Yeah.
like a somewhat 75% of a strategy that I'm in the middle of implementing. The other part, I'm losing my train of thought, was I lost my train of thought. The other part that I changed there is I created a Kanban board like on the literal wall,
Yep.
because what I want them to do is I want to enforce. I don't care what you're working on. I don't give a damn what you're working on. I want to know what you got done. Period. All right. And so my first 2 weeks, you know, I would stop them at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and we would just do your little daily stand up, and they would say what they're working on. And I'm like, no, what did you get done? And they would say something that they got done, but they had overhead because they had to help a customer or someone lost their password, this and the other. And I would understand what they were saying as they would tell me. And then the next
Yeah.
day I would lose track of the context of what they were working on the day before, because it's like 4 people that I'm coaching, right?
Yep.
So now I set up this Kanban board in which I am I am forcing them to go to that board, take the index card that represents their task, and
Yep.
move it down the pipeline if they made progress. And so now I'm trying to constrain them such that they have to visually demonstrate to everybody the progress that they made as they're talking about their state. And when the CEO comes into our room, they can look at the board and they have somewhat context. They can write down questions that they have. And then when we
Yep.
have a meeting with the CEO, we can drill into what the CEO took notes of based on the Kanban board. So this is a learning experience for me too. But the whole
Yeah.
the whole point is and applying to myself as well, is I want to build them into a machine, just like I'm trying to build myself into a machine of consistent basically being a consistent or constant improvement delivery mechanism, where everything
Yep.
is just push, 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 and everything is getting better and better and better. And that's what I'm trying to build myself and also build them to do. So
No, it sounds good. Like it's like one of the things that I've always kind of taken away from Agile is that you just try things and see how they work, and then kind of look back and see what works, what didn't, and then just iterate.
yeah.
So it sounds like the Kanban board is having some effects because it's giving you insight into what they're doing. It's giving them an idea about where they are for their own tasks.
Yeah, they're also, I noticed they're a lot more engaged on the Kanban board. They're writing new tasks and putting it on the wall, and then they're going into more detail. And so like I think
And
it's something
and,
good. They're more
and you
involved.
yeah, and you find out. Not only do you find out when they're spinning their wheels, they know themselves when they're spinning their wheels because like, you get to the end of the week and you're like, oh, time for the weekend, and you look at the board and you're like, oh crap.
Something else that I have them do is like,
Yep.
the boss is looking at me funny because they think I'm slow, and I'm like, well, why are you slow? Well, because I keep having to help customers, and it's not scheduled. It's just things that is part of the business, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I understand that. So what can we do about it? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, all right, well, you said the boss is looking at you funny, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So boss look at you funny because the boss doesn't understand how you're helping them, right? Um, the boss is giving you one thing to do, but there's other things that you're doing to contribute to making them millions of dollars, and they're not aware of that. So let's make them aware of it. So in addition to this Kanban board, you are going to basically every time you get interrupted, you're going to basically write a post-it note or write on the index card all your interruptions and how much time it took and who it was for. And in my daily status at the end of the day, I'm going to attach that to this is what you had to support. And well, this is how you supported the business that wasn't planned, but is absolutely essential so that the boss knows that you're delivering more value than what they understand because you're actually putting out fires that weren't planned. So I include that from everybody when they have to basically help other people, but it wasn't planned. I send that in my daily status so that the boss understands that, well, this is what they're working on, and hopefully there's a pattern. And the boss is going to ask a question like, "Why does this keep coming up?" And then that can be a different problem that we need to have solved. So
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much.
yeah, I'm enjoying this, man. I am. I just want to build a. I need to build more clients, and when the more clients I have, the higher my rate will go up based on demand. So that's the plan. I'm open to any recommendations or anything, any improvements you think I should make to my strategy.
No, like your strategy with the team to me sounds pretty solid. Like it's definitely like you're identifying where time is actually going, and like even though this developer has spent a lot of time putting out fires, the kind of question then becomes is like should that like be a position like or even are they putting out fires that should even be like these fires that they should be fighting?
Yep. Hence the rocks and no, we're too busy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the rocks we're not too busy, and it's like you taking that time to look at the wheels and go, oh, okay, they're not very efficient wheels. Maybe we should get some better ones. Um, but yeah, no, I can't think of anything that you can kind of do majorly better. Like especially like if you got a code base which is quite legacy and makes things hard to move, it's
Yeah.
going to take time to not only kind of educate people onto how to do things nicely, but you also have to kind of make that pain of change less than the pain of remaining the same.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. What, I'm about to wrap up in like 5 minutes, but like,
Yeah, that's fine.
what's your goal? Like, you're advanced than me because you're actually getting invited or you're actually giving talks at these big time conferences. Um,
Well,
what's your end goal?
one of the things about getting a talking spot at NDC Sydney is the fact that it's really expensive to fly people to Australia. So there's a lot more there's a lot more slots that are allocated for locals, and
Okay.
yeah, so it's a little bit easier to kind of get into positions. But also, I found that when applying for conferences, even if you're not that well known of a speaker, if you have an interesting topic and you've described it in the way that the selection committee likes, and that's hard because you don't know who they are, then they will give you a chance.
You don't have to get
Um,
vetted through a user group first before you make it to the big times. I think you're in the big times, right? And so, like, I think don't you have to like be vetted through your local user groups? Like, there's .NET Miami, there's a JVM user group that I just joined, even though I don't do Java stuff. Um, did you run it through those?
I think user groups. Yeah, yes, but the NDC talks are like an hour, so I've run parts of the talk for different groups to kind of get feedback, and that's helped me kind of form the kind of story that I want to tell.
Yeah, because I'm registered to. I'm almost registered. I haven't formally delivered the request, but I already had the conversation with the .NET Miami user group to discuss Nikeza, and so I don't. I promise you, 3 more minutes, right? I'm digging myself. I'm digging
Um,
myself in the hole, but I don't think
okay, so what are you going to talk about at the user group?
so. At the user group, I was going to basically do marketing for Nikeza, and I was going to talk about
Yep.
um, here's the .NET part, .NET Miami user group, and discuss the server side. And then I was going to talk about how the client side is done in Elm. But
Mm-hmm.
I would like to do a talk, and it is what it is, and we'll have a separate
Mm-hmm.
conversation either offline or a different live hangout on it. Not now because I got to join my biker gang. Is I would love to share what I've learned about spearheading an open source project and things I never considered that happened, things that I loved and things that I struggled with, and
Yep.
I want to share that. And I think I'm going to struggle to package that in a way that is embraced by everybody that would hear it. That's the part that I'm
No,
struggling with is
that's
how do I package it into a way that doesn't offend members on the team based on what I've learned and what I struggled with. So
well the CFP for NDC London's open.
you know
You
what?
can, you can send a talk in
I'll
called
man up. I'll man up.
create. You should send a talk in, I don't know, maybe called like creating open source software or something. I don't know. Okay.
My journey of spearheading an open source organization, and I'll go ahead and do my part, and I'll plant that seed for the organizers of it. And if they honestly, we got hella videos, right? We got proof, and they can look at all that, and then they can make their decision on if they want to bring me on or not. And then if they do, I got to hurry up and do a couple exercises of giving that talk locally between Miami, Orlando, or Tampa. Those are cities in
Yeah.
Florida. I keep forgetting you're in Australia, like
I,
5,000 miles away.
there's only a few cities in Florida. Like, I'm not that
Oh,
geographically
okay.
ignorant.
Well, us Americans, we think that like everybody knows about the states because the state, like New Yorkers, New York City is its own country, and so like I don't know,
It's got the population of a few of them.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, but like the US is just ridiculous in terms like you got 320 million people, and it seems like everyone either lives in either California or like the Midwest and East.
well, everybody
And
lives on
then,
the coast.
yeah,
I mean, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think the US is a bit more diversified in terms of the populations in the Midwest.
You'll find that the largest cities are by the coast, or largest cities are by bodies of water. So Chicago hugs a
Mhm.
body of water. Obviously, Miami and Miami, New York City, LA, San Diego. Atlanta is an exception. Houston is an exception. All right, so I guess my argument
Dallas.
has been invalidated. So I'll take it back.
Good talk.
Yo, all right, Tim Mitchell. I gotta go. I don't know who is Tim. I don't know. Mitchell, I gotta go. It's been real, man. Thanks for the encouragement of considering a large scale conference to discuss my journey or what I've learned. So I think it'll help others, people that are planning to either get into open source or want to like spearhead a project. So,
Yeah. All right. Have fun.
all right, cool. Peace. Adios. I'll put this up later this evening.
Yeah,
So.
sure.